Live from the studios of 106.7 My Talker Radio, it's Curtis Wright on the beat.
We're back live. It's 7:05 this Monday morning. And as we do every Monday now at 7 o'clock, we have a special guest with us. He's my co-host for this segment, Thomas Vass. And this is all about capital funding for companies and hopefully moving North Carolina towards a better strategy, a better plan for how do we help capitalize small companies and medium-sized companies that want to expand across North Carolina. Folks, I want to remind you that we do have a Facebook page, and I hope that you will like it. Go to it and like it. There we post these presentations, and he does a great job, Thomas does, in putting these into PowerPoint format, but we actually post them in JPEG so that you can see them. And any special guests, like the one we're having today, the Honorable Representative Dwight Loftus from South Carolina, we put his picture up there so you can put a name with a face and a face with a name, and all kinds of other information. So like us on Facebook, that's Cape Fear Capital Connections. Follow us on Twitter, and of course, you can also follow Thomas Vass on his website, which is connected to our Facebook and our website page as well. So good morning, Thomas, and we have lots to talk about.
Thank you, Curtis. I enjoy being with you. One of the things that we wanted to do today is to pick up from where we were last week, where you were raising the issue. What is the proper role of state and local government in promoting economic growth in the Cape Fear and also in North Carolina? And that's a really important issue because we've got a chance now with crowdfunding to change the dynamics and the strategy of how we help North Carolina companies, which is the only way that we're going to get out of the hole that we've dug for ourselves.
And just, I know I've made this comment for the last 3 weeks. You know, I have been involved with, in the past, in companies that I've started, and so have others, with venture capital funding. It's a different type of funding. And I believe now, after all these years, I have come to realize it is, in my mind, a very short-term and in many ways a very selfish type of funding. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, I just mean in a factual way. Crowdfunding, in looking at it and going this route, seems to me to be something that, first of all, it gives the ability for more people to be involved in help funding companies and the success of companies, the growth of companies, create a more diverse marketplace, if you will. But it also, to me, it's a long-term type of strategy. In other words, companies just don't come, they flash, they leave, and they go out of business, or they are sold off. But in fact, it's like seeding a field in my mind.
Well, one of the things that can change, that's so important, that ties into what you were talking about in the first part, is that with crowdfunding, if we change the laws about raising capital in North Carolina, crowdfunding allows citizens to reassert control over the process of economic growth in the state. And right now, and for the last 100 years, economic control for economic development has been primarily in the hands of a very small set of people in North Carolina, and that process has not worked well for our state.
And we've talked about incentive type of incentives, you know, from taxpayers or taxpayer support. Some go as far, and I do, calling it corporate welfare. You know, picking winners and losers, you'll hear Republicans talk about over and over again. But at the end of the day, we have looked at it in North Carolina, and that type of strategy has not netted net gain for North Carolina. It's not a net gain. And crowdfunding, to me, again, it's a market-based type of thing. In other words, people see companies that are growing, they're supporting those companies, so the marketplace is supporting them, and they are deciding whether to support them or not, instead of let's put our finger in the air and see if it works kind of an idea.
Well, the point there is that the rate of job creation, and jobs are created primarily by small companies, and especially small manufacturing companies, the rate of job creation is a lot less than the rate of job destruction in North Carolina. And we are in the hole. We're down in the hole, 400,000 jobs that we've lost that haven't been regained since the recession. And if we don't change the way that we do economic strategy in the state, we're not going to get out of this hole. The only way to get out of the hole that we're in is to increase the rate of capital investment in existing North Carolina firms and then to tie our strategy of small business development to the strategy of industrial recruitment. It doesn't do any good to recruit an industry that's not linked to the rest of the companies in North Carolina, so that North Carolina citizens benefit from that strategy.
And numbers don't lie. I mean, not just here in North Carolina, but across the country, we know statistics are showing that for the first time in the history of this country, we are not seeing new company growth, or creation, I should say, the way we have in the past. And that's terrible, not only for now, but our future.
Right, and what happened was in the mid-'90s and late '90s, we made two terrible mistakes in this country. We opened up our borders and exported our jobs, but at the very same time, we integrated internationally the financial institutions, banking. And that has really harmed since my statistics show that since around 2004, since the integration of the world's economy, since about 2004, nationally, the rate of job creation is a lot less than the rate than job destruction. And so we're going backwards both in the state and in the nation. And the only way out of that is to increase the rate of capital investment.
You know, again, back to what you said earlier, the era of crowdfunding, the citizens need to reassert control and put government in its proper role. And to do this, and we're moving, through these points today. Government should be in a supportive role. We're seeing that in South Carolina. The idea there is, okay, if we need some infrastructure, we need roadways, we need water and sewer, or if we, need those types of things, that's where government should be. Or existing infrastructure needs to be brought up to be able to support the growth of industry or the creation of industry. That's, to me, such an important mindset that has been lost that we must reestablish.
And it's the mindset that I like so much with Representative Dwight Loftus down in South Carolina. It's the mindset that I encounter in South Carolina. It's an allegiance to individual citizen rights, an allegiance to free market principles, and we've got to replicate that and look at what South Carolina is doing, because that's the ideology of freedom that we need in North Carolina.
We have mentioned just in passing, and I hope we will in the next couple of weeks, talk more about House Bill 680. That's sitting up there, stuck in committee. Good, bad, in between, and we're going to talk about that. But the bottom line is we need to pass legislation. We need to get at this. This is a tremendous tool, crowdfunding is, for, as you've been saying, help companies get started, create companies, and help others grow. And we've got to, and it should be a centerpiece, in my mind, of these reforms that are taking place.
Exactly right. We could not have done what we're talking about as little as 3 or 4 years ago, because the federal government had too much control over the capital market process, and that was because of laws that were passed in 1933 and 1934, and the laws are outdated because of the internet and the ability for crowdfunding. What we've got to do is bring North Carolina up to speed to accommodate the fact that now North Carolina citizens, if we pass this law, can invest in North Carolina companies. And what I want to do in the Cape Fear is I want to allow Cape Fear companies, manufacturers, technology companies, farm production companies, agricultural companies, I want to allow them to raise capital from Cape Fear citizens.
And not to be redundant, but this plan, this idea, this mindset, as I called it, using this as a component, a tool, has been put in place in other states, Georgia, I believe, or some other states, and it works. I mean, again, it's like seeding a field and watering it. It actually works.
There's two parts of it. One, we have to exempt ourselves from the federal regulations, and two, we have to tie our law to a broader economic strategy which focuses on small companies.
When we get back, we're going to be joined, and Thomas Vass, Thomas, our co-host on this segment, Cape Fear Capital Connections. Thomas is going to be speaking with the Honorable Dwight Loftus. He's a state representative from South Carolina. We'll talk about how they have gone forward to look at and to use crowdfunding, if it's working, and what is his perspective on it. Stay with us. We have lots more to talk about here on The Beat.
Please stand by for for a very important announcement.
Curtis Wright is on the beat.
You are out of control.
The new 106.7.
That's beautiful.
My Talker Radio.
We're back live here on the beat on the new 106.7 FM My Talker Radio. Co-host for our segment Cape Fear Capital Connections is Thomas Vass. And joining us from South Carolina, we're honored to have with us State Representative Dwight Loftus. And Thomas, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Great. Thank you so much. Representative Loftus, thank you so much for joining us today and to talk to us a little bit about what's going on in South Carolina. Before we talk about your bill, can we just hear from you a little bit about who you are and what you do in the General Assembly of South Carolina?
Well, yes, I have been in the legislature for, let's see, since 1996, and currently I serve on the House Ways and Means Committee. That's where the budgets are generated, and I serve on the Economic Development Committee with the budget, but I also chair the Economic Development Committee that deals with tax incentives and any pro-business encouragement that the state can give through legislation. So it's really exciting to me to see things put into place to grow jobs in the state of South Carolina.
Well, and we understand that, and Curtis and I have talked a little bit about the ideology of freedom and the ideology of free markets that we admire in the state of South Carolina. One of the things that you've done in this past session of your General Assembly and that you hope to reinitiate in January when you guys come back is the bill that's called the South Carolina Small Business Capital Investment Act. And we'd like to use that as a model in North Carolina for the kind of work that we'd like to do up here. So I wish that you would tell our listeners a little bit about what that bill is and how it will help economic growth in South Carolina.
Well, the bill initially sets to try to raise funds, capital funds that small businesses need, either in a startup or an existing business needs to grow, and that is from the private sector. We, 2 years ago, got a bill passed, Angel Capital, and that's for qualified investors, for venture capitalists, if you will. But this bill is more for the ordinary citizen who lives within the state, who can invest some money, who can get a tax credit for it, for doing that, and help small businesses grow. And when small businesses grow, they hire employees, they create jobs, and that helps the entire economy. One of the things we looked at, obviously, is the certain sectors that we feel like that would promote most of the growth in the state. And so if the investor qualifies in these categories and they get a tax credit, of course, the company itself in growing would get some credits on new business and new employee tax credits also. So it's really a way for small companies, small entities who have a difficult time getting money in the private sector through the bank or going through a long process even with a Small Business Administration, and sometimes they fail. But it's a way to grow companies, to help those who have money to invest, smaller portions of money to invest, and it just helps the economy overall.
And one of the things that I like the most about South Carolina with your BMW plant and also with the proposed Boeing plant down there in Charleston is that the leaders, the economic and financial leaders in South Carolina do a really good job helping the small companies, the small manufacturers, plug into the large companies. It's a well-integrated strategy of how to use global corporations to benefit small South Carolina companies. And it's the benefit for small South Carolina companies that I like so much. Can you talk to our listeners a little bit about what happened with the BMW plant up in your part of the state about with small companies?
Well, when the plant was first proposed or announced that it was coming here, I know there was a group of people, and I'll start it off on the negative side, who says, "Oh, we're giving away the farm." Well, now years later, South Carolina is probably, and I'm sure we are, the #1 in dollar at least exporter of automobiles. They have suppliers in 45 of the 46 counties in South Carolina, and they contribute tremendously to the economy here. The 8,000 or so employees that they have add to probably 5 to 6 or 7 other employees down the line in the trickle-down effect of the economy, because as we attract these large industries, and South Carolina is one of the leading states in attracting manufacturing, and that is the basis for our economy in America, and I'm sure making things out of raw materials is the basis for economy worldwide. But as we attract these large industries, every one of them have the need for support industries, and most of the time these are small Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 suppliers in that small business. And crowdfunding or the Capital Investment Act that we proposed will draw capital in so that these companies can grow.
Exactly right. Before we close with you, Representative, can you just tell us the status of your bill and where it is in the South Carolina General Assembly?
Well, we introduced this in the beginning of the session this year, and we're in the second year of a 2-year session. And it took us 4 years to get the Angel Capital bill through. And sometimes in the second year of the session, the agenda is already crowded. So we did not get action on it this year. We plan to introduce it again next year. I know other states across the nation are looking at it. We are in a worldwide global economy. I understand that, and we need to pay attention to that. But the fact is we've got to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, so to speak, at home and do what we can do to prosper business at home. And this is what this bill does. So we plan to introduce it again. We had 20 or so sponsors, co-sponsors last year for it. We expect more this year. And we're going to get a new start on it. And I think we'll be successful because the new manufacturing, the governor announced that we had attracted since 2011 some 56,000 jobs in South Carolina. And these companies coming in are going to need support industries, and we're going to have those industries and develop those industries and enable them to grow to continue to be successful.
Exactly right, Representative. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us about South Carolina. We really appreciate you being with us, and we'll check back in with you in a couple of months to see how you're doing. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Wow, amazing. 56,000 jobs. And, you know, that ripple effect, that's what we were talking about. This is all about that ripple effect that can happen and then it moves away from taxpayer-supported funding and incentives, and it goes, the free market then expands and grows on its own.
Exactly right. One of the things that we like to do at the end of each of our programs is to talk about technology stocks, because technology is so important as a way of stimulating economic growth. Just about everything occurs as a result of technology and manufacturing. This week, our technology stock of the week is called Tesco, TESS. Tesco Technologies delivers products and value chain solutions to organizations for building, operating, and maintaining wireless broadband systems. So one of the things that I want our listeners to do is start focusing on not just technology stocks, but how technology and capital investments in technology stimulates growth, just like a company like Tesco.
Folks, you can find out all this information that we've talked about today. I know I've repeated this a lot the last few weeks here, but this is our launch of our new segment, Cape Fear Capital Connections, and all of this information is on the Facebook page, and you can also link to Thomas Vass's website from Facebook or our website, WMYT1067FM.com. And Thomas, a great conversation this morning. And it's just great to see that there are solutions out there instead of just what I call corporate kickbacks and bribes and incentives, those programs. I think it's time for us to reestablish faith and a belief in the free market and let it do its thing.
One of the things that we need to promo here is that we're going to create a new business networking event called the Cape Fear Regional Capital Exchange. It'll be a professional membership organization, and it'll be under your jurisdiction and guidance, so we're really looking forward to that.
Don't forget to tune in next Monday at 7 o'clock for another installment of Cape Fear Capital Connections with Thomas Vass. I'm Curtis Wright. We'll be right back with Representative Chris Millis. We'll get the news. How are things going on in the short session up at the state capitol?